Hey fam, I just wanted to show you how I add animated pieces to my board with Chess Game Creator. So for this video, I'm using the Paragon characters. They're completely free to get on the Fab Marketplace. So I just have a bunch of Paragon characters that I got. And the reason I got them is because they also have animations. So it's going to be easy to showcase how I'm setting up these animated pieces here. Okay, cool. So the first thing that I start with when I'm creating animated pieces on my board is I first go to the settings section here in my details panel for the board. So you have to make sure the board is selected, and in the details panel in the settings section I go to where it says piece actor class, and you can see I have this set to SK piece. So by default, it's going to be BP piece. So BP underscore piece. And this is basically what the pieces look like when it's BP underscore piece. So what I do is change this here from BP piece to SK piece. So BP underscore SK piece. And the SK just means skeletal, like skeletal mesh. So now I have my SK piece here. The second portion, because when you make that change, you're not going to see animated pieces. So you have to add your animated pieces to your piece data table. So I have this piece data table here that I created called Paragon pieces. And it's literally just a copy of the default generic pieces. I literally just copied it and pasted it, and it is just the generic pieces, but the main difference is it has a skeletal mesh for each piece now. So basically what I do is for each piece, I just go one by one and select the mesh I want. So you select your skeletal mesh, and then there's also this section called animation map here. If you click this drop down, for you, it's actually probably going to be empty. So I'm going to copy this just so I can show you, visualize what this would look like. So for you, it's going to look like this. It's going to have 0 elements, right? The default way SK piece is set up, the animation mappings are idle, move, attack, damaged, and death. So if you create maps for all these and add animations for all these, you're literally good to go at that point. So just for this example, I'm going to go with the default maps, and then I'm going to show you how those work in the blueprints and how you can create your own mappings. So if you want to have like a taunt, or you want to have a special mapping for emotes or something like that, you can add that in here. So once you add the animation map, you have to do this for every single piece that you have here. So you just go in and add in the skeletal mesh and also the map name and the corresponding animation. All right, cool. So once you've done that for all the 12 pieces, or however many pieces you have in your game, it's super important because you're not going to see it refresh on the board immediately. So what you need to do next is click on this reinit board button here, and that's just going to reinitialize the board, and then you finally see your animated pieces. So at this point, you can literally just start playing. So, oh, actually, no, you can't just start playing. There's one more setting that you need. So the one more setting you need is you're going to need to go to the appearance section in your board details panel here, and you're going to need to change the movement style from whatever it is to animate. So let's say it's on instant, for example, and we just play. The pieces will move instantly, so there's not going to be any animation. So we want to make sure that we have the right piece movement style selected. So we have to just go to that option here, and in the drop down select animate. So that's going to make sure that it's going to use those animations that we mapped in the data table. So now the pieces are just running like in their normal animation when they move. Let's say I do something like this. Okay, I was hoping it was actually going to capture my piece, but okay. Maybe it'll capture it this time. Okay, so now it's going to capture my piece and play its attack animation, and my piece it plays its death animation. And I can also do the same. So these animations won't may not be perfect in the beginning, but there are definitely ways that you can customize this to work for you. I can't make that move. Am I going to be? Yeah, I'm going to be in check. Okay, so let's capture with this other pawn. So let's capture with this one. Boom. So it runs to him. Boom. Does the animation. Plays the hit effect. Plays the death effect. And yeah. So I'm going to. I know I just talked over how to do it. Let's say you are following along, but for some reason you're still stuck. Let's build out a fresh board here and do the same thing. Okay. So I'm going to go to my content drawer here, and usually for your own personal project, I recommend that you make your own child class for your game board inside your personal project folder. So that way, if there's an update, you don't lose your work. But what I'm just going to do here, because I'm actually not even updating anything here, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the game board. So I'll go in and grab the classical chess game board here and drop it in. So it's pretty big, but I think that's fine for the example. So I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Let's bring it here closer, and I'll drop it down actually just so that I can still see. And let's scale it down. So let's scale it to 0.1. Yeah, that's good enough. So I'll just bring it close to our spawn point here, so it's easily visible when we play. Okay, cool. So we have our board here, right? So this is the generic board, has the generic pieces. This is what you would get, right? When you open up the plugin. So you see we have our generic pieces here. So the very first step is we want to go and change from BP piece to SK piece, right? So we're going to do BP underscore SK piece. And that's, if it has any animated pieces, it's going to read that and try to get those animated pieces. So I also did the same thing here in the generic pieces data table. So you, just to save time, I didn't want to do it in the tutorial, but you can see here, this doesn't even have the animations. So this is actually a good example of how not to do it. But you know, you just add the correct data table here. So let's change our data table to this CIL paragon pieces here. So okay, cool, we have our pieces. I'm going to rename board, and the pieces are like way too big here, right? So let's fix that. So in the appearance component here, oh sorry, not appearance component, in the appearance section of the details panel of the board, there's going to be a section here for piece scale offset here, and you see it's like set to 4. So let's reset this. So let's try 1 1 1. So that's going to scale down the pieces now. Okay, so I think this looks a little bit too big still. I'm going to do 0 0.8 for everything. 0.8 0.8. Okay, cool. So these look a little better now. We have our correct data table with the correct animation and the correct mappings, but our piece movement style is still set to instant here. So we need to make sure we're checking that part here and setting that to animate. Cool. Okay, so now let's play. All right, cool. So you see we have animated pieces here. It does the run animation, and I can interact with the board and move the piece. And boom. And I can just play, see if they'll attack me here. No, he just doesn't want to attack. Going to do this one. Boom, she attacks. Boom, he attacks. Boom. And yeah, so that's how, of course, you want your animations to be a lot cleaner, but you know, that's like a whole other challenge that you need to solve with however, whatever style you want to do. Maybe you want the pieces to have like a motion warping so they can do shared animations. There's so many ways you can go about implementing it. Yeah, so let's go into BPPs. So I know I said this was going to be a quick video, but if you're here and you want to really understand the system, so I'm willing to do a quick dive or a deep dive here in BPSKPs. So I know sometimes finding classes here can be confusing. The more you play around with it, the easier it will be. But usually, if I'm finding a hard time doing stuff like that and I want to find something like BPSKPs, what I do is I'll just select the board and go to the details panel and go to where I have my piece actor class and just click this folder here with the magnifying glass. And that's going to open up the location of that class in the content browser. So now I can open SKPs. So that's just a quick tip if you're having a hard time like finding assets or stuff like that. Always look out for like this folder with the magnifying glass. It's in a lot of the menus. All right, cool. So BPSK piece in a nutshell. On begin play, the piece refreshes. So what is refresh piece? So in the piece appearance components, we have this is the base piece appearance component, and it's going to call refresh piece, where the main thing that happens here is it sets the mesh of the piece. I'm trying to find where it actually sets the mesh here. Boom, boom. Oh, here. But since this is appearance component, it's setting the static mesh. So here we want to make sure we have a specific component for the animated pieces. So that's where animated piece appearance component comes into play. And we're basically adding that component in the construction script. So now animated pieces, SKPs, will always have an animated piece component. So unfortunately, I don't think we can do the folder thing here. So what I like to do is I like to go to like the root class here, and that like basically shows me all the stuff I need. So what I want to look at here is this animated piece appearance component. And I want to look at the refresh piece function. The main difference is literally the same function here. The core difference is just that instead of setting a static mesh, it's setting a skeletal mesh and is also setting the animation map. So remember the animation map that we set up in the data table? The piece appearance component is keeping a reference to what that map is, or a copy of the map, I should say. So once we do all that, we then set the current animation states to idle. So this is where the key for our map comes into play. So basically, all these keys are relevant for calling this function called set current animation state. And you can see here we're setting the state to idle, but you can literally make your own custom states and just pair an animation to that and call this function, and it's going to run that animation. You can have it to loop or not to loop. And all this function really does is, of course, it tracks the current states, but it also updates the animation to play based on the animation map. So it's a very simple function, but super effective, and allows you to have a list of animations here, and you can override this function to change how you want to transition between states or even play certain states. So yeah, you can really do a lot with this function. This is just the base setup that works for a lot of scenarios. Okay, cool. So this is refresh piece basically, right? Let's go back to SK piece. We've constructed our appearance components. We've called refresh piece, which sets the state of the piece to idle. Next thing we do now is when we want to make a move, it's going to call this function perform movement animated. And the reason it calls this function is because we set that here in our board details panel for our piece movement style under the appearance section here. So if we set it to something else, it would call the perform movements for that state that we set it to. So this function here basically says, hey, perform the movement, and it tells us what square we want to move to. It does a bunch of calculations to figure out, okay, where is that square going to be, and take me to that square. And then it starts playing a timeline. On that timeline, we basically set the rotation to look at the direction of where we want to go. And then once that's done, we start moving to the piece. So this is another place here where we're calling this set current animation states. And, you know, like I keep saying, this is just an example. Like, the whole aim of this is for you to have an example, but really, like, for you to carry this and create your own animated piece class and have, like, your set current animation states. You can override that and make a custom functionality for that as well. And really, like, play around with how you can have these animations work. There's, like, so many ways you can use this. But yeah, it just basically starts the movement and goes to that location. So it plays the animation, but also moves the actor to that location over time. And then once all that is done, if there's a piece there, like an enemy piece, it's going to go ahead and perform an attack animation. And after that, it's going to finish moving. So here, it doesn't actually move all the way to the final destination of where the piece would be. So that's just a key point here. So that's why it does the final move animation here, and then it plays the timeline here to move to the final destination. So yeah, once all that is done, it's going to reset the rotation of the piece to face the proper direction after doing the movement, and then it's going to call refresh piece. So it basically goes back into the idle states. So it basically goes back into this state, but we want to make sure that, you know, the piece is properly refreshed. Yeah, so that is really SK piece. Second thing here is when the piece gets captured, it needs to also play its set of animations. So there's an event dispatcher here that gets called whenever, or not event dispatcher, sorry, or actually is it interface, my bad. An interface event here that gets called whenever this piece gets captured. And it just basically, you know, plays a basic hit, like where it gets damaged. After the animation of it being hit is done, then it's going to play a death animation. I have it here where it delays for 3 seconds and then the actor gets destroyed. If you want, you can literally plug this in to delay for the sequence length of the animation and then destroy the actor. So there's so many ways you can go about like implementing this for your own custom settings. And just for me, I think I should probably push this in an update, but I have my animation keys that I am using here. You can also have yours written down in a document or somewhere, so just so you can easily track what animations you're using. So this is really, yeah, that's basically animated pieces for Chess Game Creator. Super, super easy to get set up. You don't need to know all this stuff in the blueprints to set it up. All you need to do is make sure you're setting your piece data table. you're setting your piece movement style, and super important, you want to go to your settings section here and set your piece actor class. So this is the only thing that's in a whole different section. So you want to make sure you don't forget that part, because if you try to do animated pieces with BP piece, for example, it's just going to show you the static meshes, okay, because it has the wrong animation, it has the wrong appearance components for the piece. So you want to make sure you're using the right class. So SK piece. Or you can basically copy the stuff that's in SK piece to make your own piece class and make it like 1,000 times more badass than what I have here. All right, friend. So that's it for this one. If you have any other tutorials you want, jump in the Discord and let's have a discussion. Tell me what you're looking for and let's see if we can make that happen, okay? All right, love you.